to order in the spirit of efficiency.
Love it.
I like to make sure that we get what we need to get done so that we can get out of here on time. And so, yes, so here's
Check number one off.
are there any changes to the agenda? That anybody like to discuss?
No.
So the goal of today, from my perspective, and please let me know, live stream, do I need this or am I good?
You're going to pull it down.
Okay, pull it, is this even
I think
on?
it's on.
No.
Hers is.
Hello.
I'm in the middle of two. You might want to try
Okay, ooh. So the goal for today, from my perspective, and please let me know if you have any additional goals, is for us as a committee to create recommendations that we can bring to the board, and the board can then see what we recommend, make their changes, and then adopt. So I want us to be able to have a solid plan that can be prepared for the January meeting. And then the board can make their changes or make their recommendations, and then we will adopt the criteria. So we can start first with the superintendent job description. So this job description is from the previous superintendent search. I did have a chance to look over it. I don't know exactly what Bob does on the day-to-day, right? And so I'm going by, and I shouldn't know, but I'm going by what was provided previously. But does anybody see anything that we want to take out, add in, any additional questions that we need to add? Yeah, so let's have a discussion about the job description. Terry, can I get some water?
I do have a question, and this may be for Gary. So I was looking at different districts' policies, the qualifications and duties of the director of schools. And is that different? And I see we have a packet here, so there's this. How is this different than this job description? Can you kind of tell me the differences of those two things?
And then add to that, is the job description even needed?
I had that question also.
Thank you.
No, good questions. And that's something I was going to talk about with the contract, because TSBA's sample contract talks about pulling in the job description, so tying it all together. Previously, we haven't done that. We can do that if you all want to. But like you said, this job description was available for the last superintendent search. It's housed with human resources. So right now, it can be modified pretty easily. But if the board wants to make it more, what I would call more of an official document, you all can do that. As for the policy, TSBA's sample policy has, a lot of what you would see in the job description. It also pulls in other elements that we already have, that you already have in your policy, because Terry's done a good job of putting together a packet. There's basically like a suite of policies that you all already have that cover most of what's in this sample policy. And then if you wanted to cover anything else in this sample policy, that would be covered by the job description. One note that I had on the job description, you all were talking at your last meeting about, education and experience. There's already some of those requirements on this job description, so you all may want to take a close look at that, and decide if you want to stick with that, because I know there was talk about a master's degree and a doctorate degree and things of that nature at your last meeting. So, but I think the bottom line is, if you want this job description to be pulled into either policy or the contract, we can do that pretty easily.
So I wonder how much of, and this is just what I'm thinking, how much of a job description is even needed to where we just refer everything to our policy? Because I see it could be just some discrepancies between what the policy says and what the job description says, but the policy is what governs Knox County Schools.
Yeah.
So I wonder what would that look like if we just did away with the job description.
You can do that as well. I mean, certainly, no, and I agree. You know, right now, your policy mirrors the state law to a great extent. I mean, there are some additional things in there, but there's one policy in particular that goes through all the duties of the superintendent. I mean, you know, and that's state law. That's not gonna change no matter what.
Yeah.
The job description has a little bit more of a tweak to it,
Yeah.
right?
I
Yeah.
like that idea because I think it streamlines it more. It's not as daunting, because look at all this paper I have. I mean, some are like different districts that I printed out, but I mean, this is a lot. And this thing, the qualifications and duties of the directors of schools, do we currently have this as a policy? I don't think we do we?
Not in this form. I mean, you know, if you take all these other policies that are behind it
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
and then you got the director of schools duties, which is the C-123, that's the one
Yeah.
that, you know, that mirrors the state law.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I had looked at this beforehand, this first copy right here, that other school districts use, and I kind of like it, to be honest, because it kind of breaks it down into general, so it breaks the duties down in categories. So financial management, personnel administration, community and public relations, instructional leadership, so I kind of like how it's broken down. And some school districts didn't reinvent the wheel, they just used it, yeah. Which when I went over all of these and all of this,
Matches.
it's pretty similar, but this one is broken out, I think, in a more organized way.
So what I'm thinking, because when you think about a job description, you're looking at who you are and what you'll do. And so the who you are is already set in our selection criteria. So we can kind of refer to that if people are looking for a technical job description. So who we're looking for is in the already approved criteria that the board approved. And then what you'll do is the policies here
Yeah.
aspect. So that kind of covers your job description necessity.
Right.
So what Gary has said is that Terry has done a fantastic job with creating this suite of policies.
Yeah, it's like pretty. and
So
it's
do
like-
we want this as well? Or do we just want to keep with the Knox County schools? Does that make sense?
Yeah. that makes
Okay.
sense.
So if you look at this part, the first one, this is TSBA sample policy. The first few before you get to Knox County Board.
It's like the first, I think, 4 pages.
Oh, the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first few pages are TSBA's standard, and then the next pages starts with Knox County Board of Education policies. And what Gary has told us is that we have kind of broken up the state policy example and fit them all throughout all of these other ones. So my question is, do we want this as a clear, concise as well, or do we just want to own what we already have in policy in Knox County School Board of Education? My recommendation would be to own what we have, because if there's any discrepancy, then, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. If it's already in here and, you know, so, makes sense.
So basically, we're doing away with,
The job, like
The job, yeah, I recommend we cut the job
any
description.
and we're
supplemental.
doing away with this and just adopting section C of all the.
And using that as, go ahead, Gary.
I just wanted to suggest one thing that the administration could do, and I could do with the administration, would be to take a look at what is in the TSBA form policy that's not at all
Yes,
in your current policy,
Yeah.
and see if we can maybe generate, you know, an additional policy that includes that additional
Yeah, I
information.
like that, because if there's anything missing from this, because
Right.
the TSBA one that other school districts around us have used, there was some good stuff in that. And, if there's anything missing, it would be nice to, if we can add it in, if,
Yeah.
you know, at the board's pleasure, if they
Maybe
wanna
put
add
it-
that in.
Maybe put it as an additional
Either-
policy, like a catch-all.
Or like
Either,
an addendum kind
either
of
an
thing.
additional policy or add to an existing policy.
Yeah, that way we're not
Yeah.
creating a new policy,
Right.
but kind of updating the current one.
Right.
For whatever's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that,
Me too.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So far we have, look at us, been this efficient committee. We are making the recommendation that the job description isn't needed because when you look at a job description, it's who you are and what you'll do. So who you are is already selected in the criteria, and what you'll do is already found in our board policy. Admin administration of Knox County Schools will then do a review of what's missing from our current policy. That we'll do a review of the TSBA outline to make sure that we are catching everything that's in that in our policies as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, look, that is, what agenda item is that?
Number 2 marked off.
Oh, number 2, done. Bam.
Do y'all want to vote on that?
Oh,
Make a mo-
yes, okay. So I make a motion, thanks, Gary, we always need a lawyer, right? I make a motion that we make the recommendation to remove the job description completely and adopt the Knox County Schools Board of Education policy as our, job description.
Yeah.
I second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
There we go.
All right, pass. Cool, thanks. So moving down, do we want to move to the contract or salary range?
Let's do salary.
Salary range? Okay. So I will say that I think that this is just laying it out there. Superintendents are hot commodities right now, nationwide, and good ones at that. I will also say that we are aware that Superintendent Thomas, just by the nature of the man that he is, did not take full salary that he should have had, or was offered or should have had, but just his qualification. So that in a sense puts us in a peculiar place when it comes to where it should be in the market range, but also community's perception of what it should also be too. So I'm full, you know me, I'm down to just throw it out there and say we need to pay this man, this person, whoever may be X, Y, and Z, but I'm open to suggestions.
And I can't remember, I know at the last full board meeting, we talked about the salary that was offered to him. Does anybody remember what that salary was?
I think it was like
I can-
$229.
I can
Oh,
talk about
it.
offer.
It was
Oh, yeah,
240.
go ahead, Gary, give us the
So-
background, we need to know our history.
And I think Patty can too. Patty was certainly involved in that process
What's
as well.
the nut? Okay.
So the board was in a position that it wanted to pay less than what had been paid to Dr. McIntyre. And of course, Buzz Thomas was interim, and the board just treated him as an interim, so that really didn't count as far as, full-time superintendents. But, so the board wanted to pay less, right around, I think what was initially offered was less than 200,000. But then there was some negotiation and brought it up to right at 200,000. As you said, I mean, Bob Thomas could have certainly negotiated further and probably could have gotten more, but was very gracious in saying, hey, I don't want to seek, a sky-high amount, in his terms. So, so he was good with the 200, and then, of course, over the past several years, that has inched up, as well. So, I mean, that brings you to your current amount of, I think it's the 215.
250 with everything.
215.
215.
Yeah, roughly.
It's actually 216, 827.
Yeah.
216,827. Okay. So with that knowledge, right, if we go into are these the most current? Where is this?
That's the most current, and also, there's also a $7,200 travel supplement that our current superintendent receives, and so you might want to consider
What,
that as well.
what was that number again? I'm sorry.
7,200
Okay.
a year.
Travel budget.
And
So
that's,
the 216 is just base salary, right? Okay.
And I think, I agree with you, Ebony. I think where you get into an issue, and we're not there yet, so, but we do need to consider it when we're considering the salary range, is depending on who Knox County, goes with as their, proposed candidate, and make sure that our, law department represents us well so that we don't get into a situation like we had with our former superintendent of a huge buyout that cost us a lot of money.
How do we avoid that? With,
Well, you don't agree to their lawyer's terms
Okay.
if they bring their own lawyer in
Mhm.
to the negotiations. But I do think it's important to keep that in mind when we're looking at a salary range, and I would prefer to do a range
in
than.
a number?
Yeah, I'd rather do a
specific salary,
range
but,
too.
You know, between travel expenses and other incidentals and benefits and the, buyout that we had, or the board voted to agree to, that superintendent's lawyer's terms. So just keep that in mind, you know, with your, whoever's in charge of handling that negotiation, Gary.
No, you're right, Patty. I mean, and Dr. Grissom talked about, having a contract that's slanted towards the board. I mean, I can assure you all, and I can assure the rest of the board that our contract is slanted towards the board. I mean, when I looked at the TSBA contract, I mean, there's a couple additional things that we may want to add. I'm happy to learn from somebody else's work, or at least, borrow off of it. But it is slanted toward the board, and one thing we had to go through with Bob Thomas's contract was to make sure that his benefits were in line with the rest of KCS employees. That was not true before, and it was our position that would likely, violate the law. There's ERISA and there's other laws that would apply to that. So Bob Thomas's contract does align, with the rest of KCS employees' benefits. So.
I have a question too, because I know Hamilton County just hired a new superintendent. Do we know that current salary? Because I assume it's different from this number, because this is probably,
So I know
Superintendent before?
the previous one, which was just 2020, was 240 and 20,000 in additional stuff. So that it came out to like it was terms, it was money connected to like achievement type thing.
okay.
But the proposed salary was 240. I don't know what they came away. This is a quick Google search.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because I'm sure we may have some of the same candidates, I'm assuming, because it's so close to each other.
But then also
And-
knowing Tennessee schools, like.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we're thinking about range, because I'm okay with the range as well versus a set number, what's appropriate? Is it like, what's a recommended range? 100,000, what's within 100,000, 50,000? Does that matter?
Well, Dr. Grissom had said, I think she had suggested maybe 50.
The $50,000 range?
And, I mean, that's completely up to you all, but I think that's certainly probably a good range for negotiation. I mean, if it were our decision, which it's not, right? I mean, we're just here to help and advise, but I mean, 100,000 sounds like a
Big.
pretty wide range. Yeah.
That's a huge difference. If I'm making 200 or 300,
So, looking at, just, and this is a beginning point of discussion, but if you're looking at a 50, thousand range, if you started at 225 and went up to 275, you still got Williamson, which is the wealthiest county in the state. Above that, Shelby, which is an entity of their own, and Davidson, which is, I'm just being truthful.
It is.
285.
We love Shelby County, though.
So
Shout out to
that's
Shelby
still-
County.
That's still a little bit below some of these larger systems, but I think you can always, I don't know, I mean, I would rather negotiate, I don't think it's like going to buy a used car or something. I mean, it's
Yeah.
easier to negotiate down than it is, I don't know, or up instead of down, I don't know.
I mean, you know me, Patty,
Oh, I know. We're working on that,
I don't see us even playing ball with like quality people without being at minimum 300. I just don't. Especially when I look at just what happened with this new superintendent that's been hired in Gwinnett County in Atlanta. Quality, that's a 500, they're getting 500,000. Different place, different area, but their school system is not larger or is similar size than us, right? And so, I don't think we could even be in like conversation with the people that we need, especially with the high demand without even,
So are you talking 300,000 being the lowest, up to 350, and then benefits and travel and all on top of that? Because you got to factor that in.
I'm open to that discussion, but I don't.
The benefits and.
If you really think of where Bob's supposed to be, Bob should be somewhere around 250, 260.
And that's probably a better question for Ron, or somebody else in the finance department, but I mean, what I recall from the last search, benefits roughly add, $25,000 to $35,000. I mean, if you look at, the amount of value, so.
Well, and just let me put this out, not saying that the 300,000 starting, not okay, but you also have to look, because I think that is what really irritated a lot of our
The
employees
wage,
years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
So you've also got to realize that our teachers
Mhm.
and our staff and all those people are underpaid versus surrounding counties.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So like if, Williamson County teachers are making $25,000 more than us,
Mhm.
you've got, I think you have to factor that in to keep employee satisfaction and good morale, because it's very defeating if a teacher is way underpaid
Mhm.
and our superintendent is overpaid. Not that he should be overpaid compared to Atlanta, but I'm
Yep.
saying overpaid.
No, that makes sense in our
according to-
structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
According to our system, so I
Yeah.
think that's highly important to keep in mind, not that he doesn't deserve, or Atlanta can pay this, but I do think that you have to.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah, I think 250 seems to be like a sweet spot for that.
I think 280.
280,
Mhm.
250 to 300.
That's fair.
280 to 300,
250 to 300,
or
the
250
range.
to 300.
That's what she recommended.
Okay. I would feel more comfortable than that with $25,000 to $35,000 in benefits, and then, you don't know what else is gonna be asked. So I would hate to have a candidate think they were gonna make 300,000, and say, no, you don't.
Yeah.
We don't
Okay.
think you're worthy of that, so we're just gonna, I don't.
Let me see. So I make the motion that we recommend a salary range of 250,000 to 300,000. That includes base salary, benefits, and that includes all compensation. What's that motion?
Let me just add one more before there's a second. Again, I mean, no matter what range you set, I mean, there could always be negotiation with your final candidate after that.
Yeah.
So I would perhaps suggest be careful about going maybe up to 300 right now.
Okay.
Because then, I mean, I think you're kind of locking yourself in. I mean, if everybody agrees 300 is kind of the max, and
You're gonna
then
go
we
to
can't go
350?
from there, yeah.
So what does that
So-
motion look like?
Well, and then the other thing is perception too, right? So when you set a max in your range, then candidates may be thinking, okay, well, that's what I'm going for, right? I'm going, I'm going for that max. So perhaps maybe look at 280 or something as your max or something, just a suggestion. And then with the understanding that, hey, I mean, if you had a knock it out of the park candidate and you wanted to pay a little bit more, you'd be open to negotiation.
So would we do a range, or just say salary recommendations of 250 with the opportunity to negotiate and just let that?
That's what I was thinking, like starting at.
Absolutely, yeah, you
Starting
could
at
do that too.
250
Yeah.
with the option of negotiating.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't lock you in.
If somebody has a
Okay.
doctor, that's
Yeah.
gonna be more, and there's other things that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that too.
So, I make the we didn't second, so it's not a live motion, right? So look at me learning, Robert. I make the motion that we have a starting salary of 250,000 with starting salary of 250,000.
Yep, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so that's the $250 starting salary is what we're taking to the board. All right, look at that.
250,000, right?
What'd I say?
You said $250. I mean,
Oh, no.
Or,
that'd be
I
a
mean-
bargain.
That too.
250,000.
Gary probably drafted it in her notes.
That'd be a lot of money if my 10-year-old wants it, yeah.
All right, the last thing, look at us, so that marks off our salary range, way to go, team. Superintendent contract. So,
I can speak to this, and then I'll let you all take it away. Like I said, I mean, I'm happy to add, a few things in. I mean, what I saw was there's a couple things that aren't in ours on the first page, talking about the duties, but again, I mean, so it talks about job description, but you all have already said you don't recommend the job description, so we don't need to add that. It does talk about the referrals to the director, that last paragraph on the first page. So that's something we could add if you all would like. They have some optional benefits, and I'll just kind of roll through it, and then we can go back and focus on whatever you all want to focus on. But on page 2 and 3, they have some optional benefits that we don't have. Again, I say we don't put them in there if we don't have to, right? I mean, again, we've got a good contract as it is, but if you are moving someone from far away, particularly out of state, you may want to consider moving expenses and housing, but that could be part of the negotiation. On page 4, they have listed professional liability. The Knox County Schools is self-insured, so that's why we don't have that in ours, and I don't see any need to add that unless somebody feels like, we want to buy another insurance policy. Then we get to 5, and that's something that you all may want to seriously consider there in the middle. It talks about a medical examination. We don't have that currently, so if you feel like that's something worthwhile, we can add that. And then on page 7, I do recommend adding this, and I'll be happy to go ahead and do so. It talks about criminal background check. In recent years, the state's tightened that up quite a bit, which is a good thing for all school employees. So yes, we should have that for the superintendent as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
You make the recommendation for medical examination, or?
No, that's going to be up to you all and the rest of the board. I mean, if you feel like,
What would that give us? What information would we get out of that?
I mean, if you had somebody that was suffering, I mean, like it says in here, from a physical or mental illness, I mean, you could step in at that point, and ask for. I mean, so with the human resources, I mean, sometimes this happens where we have to do a fitness of duty type of evaluation. So that's what that's
Protection
including.
if somebody goes off and.
Yeah, if it's, is suffering from something and really, is having trouble leading, and so you feel like you need some reassurance that person is going to be able to actually perform the job.
I'm just trying to also see the flip side of it. How can it be used against someone too? I don't know. I don't know about that one.
So we're in agreement though.
Background
Working
check.
my way backwards. We're in agreement on adding the criminal background.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a must. So, yeah.
And we were looking at
The medical examination.
medical, yeah.
Also too, I know we have it here, performance standards and evaluation for number 7 on ours, but where does stronger connection between the superintendent evaluation can be tied to the contract? Like the results of that evaluation, where does that come into play?
That would, I mean, you all could create that, and of course, you've got a policy, right, on superintendent evaluation, but you could tie that policy into the contract, and you would want some type of monetary, benefit there, right? I mean, that hasn't been done in the past, but I mean, that's certainly something you all could do in the future.
Is that something that they would, usually a superintendent would advocate for as a benefit, or is that something we would hold them accountable to?
I think that's something you all would probably push. I mean, I think superintendents are just like the rest of us. I mean, you know, if I can draw, you know, a salary that I can rely upon, that's great. But I mean, if you want to put some
Bonuses
incentives
or
in there,
something,
exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and do
That's
super,
gonna be, and I'm not, I would be in favor of that, I'm just saying, that's gonna be hard, I think,
Hard
to
sell.
determine what that is.
Like, what are the
Because
criteria?
I mean, I would not be in favor of just basing it on test scores, because we've seen the.
But I'm not looking at it in the sense of incentive. I was also looking at it in the sense of you didn't move the needle.
So you
Yeah.
could,
You have not upheld your contract. That's where I was looking at it.
Okay.
yeah.
Where
And
does,
that's kind of different from incentive pay, but incentive's harder to sell.
I think that's your evaluation. I mean, because you all are basing your evaluation on, you know, do we want to extend the contract or not?
Okay.
So, I mean, I think you've already got that part built in.
And-
I mean,
okay.
an additional would be if you wanted to pay extra money for hitting certain benchmarks.
I got you. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I don't care about that. I care about more like holding you accountable type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Okay. And that's where the evaluation, we as a board, are we doing that evaluation? But we gotta get some real
Very
teeth.
important.
Yeah, we gotta get some real teeth in the evaluation.
Well, okay, on moving expenses and housing, you wanna just not put that in there, and Gary said that could be negotiated later, so just leave that
Yeah.
out. And then the other thing that I saw, Gary, on page 1, I like under the term of the contract, because of the problem we got in many years ago, having that spelled out there. I think it's all over here somewhere as well, but, you know, up to a maximum of 4.
Where are you looking at, Patty?
Under terms of contract on the sample, from,
Okay.
I guess, the SBA,
Okay.
and I haven't looked at Martin County's again, is it, I know there's somewhere in there that's mentioned, but I just think
It's
there's
there.
a huge
Yeah.
misunderstanding about that.
And I don't know if,
think we can say it.
I don't know if we're gonna get around that misunderstanding. I mean,
What is
I
it
mean,
saying?
I mean, you're right. We had that misunderstanding before, and I don't know if we're gonna get around it. I mean, I'll be happy to add some more language to try and make it as clear as possible, Patty. I don't have a problem with that at all. I know when we did Bob's contract, when it was extended the last time, you know, we're careful to use the extended language versus, you know, elected to renew. If Bob had continued on, we would have had to do that. We would have had to say that his contract was fully extended to 4 years, and then the board would be creating a new contract at that point.
Okay,
You know,
so
that could be,
extending the current one.
that could go up to 4 years. Yeah, you can only extend a single contract with the superintendent for 4 years.
4 years.
That's it. That's the max. And then after that, you have to create a new contract.
And so you're referring to, is that we put a number here?
Well, that's how they did it, it doesn't matter to me, I just want somewhere in our language to make sure that it is according to state law.
So when we give this contract to our next superintendent, is it a yearly contract, or is that part of negotiation too?
That's part of the negotiation. So let's go back to Bob Thomas's contract. You know, when it was first negotiated, and Patty knows this, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but when it's first negotiated, it was for 2 years, right? I mean, you know, with the understanding that it could be extended up to 4. So it was just for 2, and then after an evaluation, it was extended to 3, and then finally, it was extended to 4. But those were 3 different votes by the board to get to that 4.
And when you say extended to 4, that's 4 additional years?
No, it's 4 total.
4 total.
That's all you can do, and then you have to renew the
Whole
whole
thing.
thing.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
extend it to year 4 type.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that year 4 or year 3, extended to year 2 type thing. That year might be the
Right,
difference.
but you could offer a 2-year, a 3-year, or a 4-year, right?
Okay.
Or you could even offer a year. I don't know that you get any superintendents that would want to come for a year, right?
But
But
then
I
you
mean,
get
but you have
higher.
those options.
You go through that buyout situation that you were talking about.
And I think, if I remember, it's been a couple of years pre-COVID, attending some of those superintendent search classes period. And that's a balancing act, because if
Yeah.
somebody wants the security of knowing they're moving like their young children here, and they're gonna be in the school system, and they don't want to have to go through this every year, but then you get into the problem of too long of a period too, and then having to deal with that. And I think, if I remember correctly, I don't know what other systems have done, but I just remember there being discussion around people now looking at more like a year or two contract rather than a 4-year contract.
four.
What do you know?
I mean, no, I think you've stated it accurately, but again, I mean, I think a year might be problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, because,
Yeah, you don't
but,
want to preach a law.
yeah, but I felt like when you all hired Bob Thomas, I mean, 2, I think was probably, I think the consensus from the board at the time was that's kind of the minimum you'd want to
No, I
go
don't
with,
know.
so.
It doesn't matter, and that'll be in negotiations. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Lauren, that
Okay.
systems were not willing to offer as long because they are wanting more accountability of their superintendents and the ability to do whatever need be. And we've seen a lot of systems have to do that, you know?
But I wonder how much of like going back to tying the contract to the performance, like if we extended 3-year contract just for that security of somebody moving their family or whatever it may be, but also in the contract, it's extended 3 years being that your performance evaluation is X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah,
Is that there in the contract?
that's what I was wondering.
I mean,
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I was wondering.
what it, I mean,
Hire lawyers.
it's, so whatever term, what's been done in the past is whatever term was set, i.e. the 2 years, and that was it. And then the board then had to do something positive, right? You all had to bring a motion to extend the contract. So then it was based upon his evaluation. So that's what's happened.
But I want it
previous.
based upon the evaluation from the jump, though. From the beginning, like.
So you just want to give him a 1-year contract?
No, what I'm saying is like a 3 extended, like make the recommendation that we offer a 3-year contract with the understanding that it's depending on your performance value as well. Can that be a thing?
We could put in a termination for cause tying it to the evaluation. Yes. But then you all would have to decide what that evaluation, what that negative evaluation would look like.
Yeah. Because I just don't think that we should have a superintendent that can just ride out without moving the needle.
Yeah, I don't want you to sit there for 3 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of moving.
But that movement has to be, we have to have the understanding that it's not gonna change overnight too.
Right,
Right,
yeah.
so it doesn't need to be something, but
Yeah.
I think that term,
Things take time,
those terms of
yeah,
like, let go should be in there too.
yeah.
But I do think we have to at least do a 3-year. I think under a 3-year for this feels shaky. And that's coming from somebody that goes a lot of different
We
places.
So-
have to have that in there. That's
So the-
really up to the negotiation.
Right, and that's what I was just gonna,
6 months.
So
yeah, go ahead.
that may be our feeling.
Okay.
And we could recommend that, but I think that really
Okay.
comes down to
Yeah.
the chair and the law department meeting
Okay.
with that
Yeah.
candidate.
So
And
we
that's
can, so when we bring this to the board, we say this was our discussion, but it's ultimately in negotiation.
So the feeling is from everybody.
As we delegate to our chair to negotiate, we, as a committee, are thinking 3 years with blah, 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 would be what we would recommend. So when we do get this, and we could do that at any point, but so when we do get this candidate, that Ms. Christie and the law department will know what the board was thinking, and other members of the board may want to do more,
Yeah.
So at least
Mhm.
the discussion on it would give Gary and Christie some idea of what
With the committee. Yeah.
non-members of the board and the committee were thinking.
I like that. Gary, what was those terms you said? You said terms of termination tied to the superintendent? Is that what you
So yeah, y'all take a look at, in the current contract, when you get a chance, section 10 talks about termination of agreement. And the 10B specifically talks about termination for cause.
Okay.
And what it's tied to right now, which I recommend keeping, obviously, it's tied to those types of causes you would find in a tenure termination of a teacher. So these are significant violations of either board policy or law or, the teacher code of ethics and things like that. So like, when a teacher's brought up to terminate tenure, it's usually a very significant type of charges. So that's what's the same in here right now. But there is not anything for cause tied directly to the evaluation.
Performance evaluation.
Yeah, so that would be an addition if you all wanted that.
So I guess, and I wouldn't want to take a vote on that now. I think it's just worth discussion
Yeah.
to the board. So performance tied to the contract, do we want to go, and I don't know the words, right? But do we want to go the termination route or do we want to go the incentive route when it comes to terms of holding our superintendent accountable to the evaluation
Yeah.
Well, we could come to a consensus or a vote
that we want to
as a
go?
committee, but I think that it's, like you said, it's just sharing with the board our thoughts on it.
Okay.
And I think, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I think the incentive's gonna be a little bit harder to picture. I like the positive versus the negative, but I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be harder to picture on what how that looks.
How that looks.
Yeah.
How they meet those goals, I mean, because
Yeah.
in a data-driven world, the data doesn't prove everything,
Didn't
you
tell
know?
the full story.
We're out to be horrible, and we could be testing it off the top, but
All right, cool, I got you, I hear you loud and clear. So, so just for the sake of what we're making changes to our contract that was discussed so far is to add the background check. How we feel about the medical, bring it up as a board or add that into conversation? I, I don't know how well, I feel like, I don't
why
know.
do you think it would be a negative? Let me hear your reasoning. About how you think it
Yeah,
would
you're
be
good,
used
yeah,
to
right.
everybody.
That's good. Let me think. So hypothetically, especially in the era where mental wellness is a big part, people could use, like, I can see we getting into a situation where a person has episodes of mental illness, but that doesn't stop them from performing their job, and somebody can find out that information and use it against them. But if they're performing their job and their duties and and they're taking care of themselves, that I could see somebody using that as an avenue to,
So it's somebody.
but so as a board, I could say a board
under-
member, yeah.
Under the care of somebody or seeing, because they're under so much stress,
Mhm.
seeing a mental health professional and that being used against
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, versus in my sense, it's like, okay, I'm doing everything I need to do, and my performance is doing well. Why is that looked at as
Right.
a negative and not a positive? That's one example.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, it does make sense.
And for one episode where I just happen to just lose it at a meeting, then somebody can then go start digging and investigating and use that as a,
And use them.
just because I lost my cool for one time.
I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't consider it an essential.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from a family that has dealt with mental illness, I can see both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And not to get too political, but we're looking at a situation in our nation right now
Mm-hmm.
where somebody needed some kind of testing done. So I don't know. I mean, I just can't foresee
Yeah.
that being, I mean, I can't see a need for that or that being a problem, but then who would have
Who
thought,
knows,
you know?
right? It's one of those things, do you protect it now? Or do you have an episode and you should have protected it?
Right.
And being that we've had this conversation, it's kind of like,
I
Thanks,
think-
Gary.
I think mental, but there's other things. I mean, like, this is a high stress
Yeah,
job.
it is.
Yeah.
And not to eliminate somebody because they have a heart condition,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be very hard, in my opinion, for somebody that has a heart condition to be under such extreme pressure, you know, day in and day out. So I tend to look at it more from the physical than the mental, but I don't know. I can't think you don't mind that.
But at the end of the day, you can't discriminate though, right? You still have to,
Right,
yeah.
You know, Americans with Disabilities Act and things like that would still apply.
So that can kind of be the buffer, is that, to put it in here for the safety net, but understanding that they still have all the rights.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so, and then again, the board could say, no, we don't want that.
Yeah.
All right, anything, so I make the motion that we adopt our current contract with the additional medical examination clause and background check clause.
I think it provides a safety net. And like you said, I mean, Americans with disabilities, there's
Yeah.
a lot that would come into play to protect that person.
Yeah, I agree. And then it also says in here in the sample one that, you know, performing your obligations for 30 days or longer. So I feel like if we put some protections in there with that, with the Americans with Disabilities Act, I feel like we can put those protections in there.
Have a medium.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't need to put yeah, okay, so that was, I have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Got a motion and a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, perfect. So what we're bringing to the board is this contract with the discussion of performance evaluation in contract and, And our recommendations to those. Okay. and then also extended contract. What does that, like how many years? So
Yeah.
that's the discussion that we're bringing,
Yeah.
but we're bringing that to the board.
Yep.
All right, what else we have? Other business?
Gary, is there anything else?
Anything we need to be thinking ahead of, thinking about?
Not that I can think of. I will finalize a draft form contract that you all can bring to the board
Okay.
as a whole.
I will say, just to give us a heads up, I don't know how the board will approach the next steps on this, but TSBA did communicate that the evaluation is something that you would work with the superintendent with to create. And so if we want to get ahead of that game and start thinking about what we want to see in an evaluation tool, so that when it comes time to have those conversations, we can already have like a game plan.
Yeah.
I like that, and I think we need to start on it as soon as
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah.
We're on a short timetable anyway, and with the holidays, so I would say up to the first of the year. And I don't know how the board wants to approach it. I mean, we had a committee last time, but
I'll bring it up at the board to see if this is something that this committee wants to continue to own.
well, we could do that since this one's already in place. Again, it's a three-person committee because of the quorum and all that,
But even if we just create the framework
so. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
as a
And then
board,
bring
as a
it
But to
community.
me, unless somebody just really
Wants to be on
serve
it.
on that committee, I'll have to step aside. But to me, the
Yeah.
continuity,
Yeah.
if this is already a working committee, makes sense to just give, the board would have to give us the authority to develop a superintendent evaluation framework.
Okay, I'll bring that up. And because the recommendation from Grissom was that we work with the superintendent to create that, so we'll
But,
probably
yeah,
that.
but at least we could have something in front of the new superintendent, and he could add or delete or.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I like that plan.
Any other business? Well, thank you. The time is now 10:50 and the meeting is adjourned. Way to go, team.